Hello and welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Schultz, and I am joined by a good buddy of mine, Mookie Alexander, the managing editor over at Field Gulls. And Mookie, it was a wild game as our Seahawks, they come away with the victory, 26-21 in maybe one of the weirdest Seahawks games that we've seen in a while.
Yeah, we maxed out on unserious football in this game. In fact, it's a miracle that the over hit because this game did not deserve to be 26-21. It felt like it should have been like 3-2. It was that wild a game. And I tell you what, fortunes changed so much because there was a pretty long period of time. In fact, I'd say almost all of the game that the Seahawks were trailing and the Cardinals were winning against Minnesota. And then in the span of a few minutes, Seahawks take the lead. The Vikings take the lead against Arizona, and they hang on to it. And shout out Shaq Griffin, game-ending pick for the Vikings. So Seattle, through all of the sloppy play we just saw today, sole possession of first place in the NFC West, the division nobody really wants to win.
Shaq Griffin, our hero on the Vikings this week, but our real hero, Mookie, as Craig Payne says in the chat. Hey, 2 words, Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams apparently took it personally that he didn't win Defensive Player of the Week last week because he finishes the game with a blocked extra point, a pick 6, and multiple sacks, including one that helped end the game toward the end, and one nearly helped that put him back in 3rd and 25, and then weirdly again they give up what was it, 3rd and 26, and then they get to 4th and 2, and then they give that up, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, if this game could just end with this defense on the field. And fortunately, even despite giving up a long 3rd down, they were able to get off the field there at the end.
Yeah, you know what? In a twisted way, it was almost better that they somehow gave up almost all of 3rd and 26 and let the Jets run the clock down to a minute, because there was very little part of me that wanted to put the offense back on the field to try and run the clock out, because there was just too much hijinks potential. Unless the Jets, of course, would commit like their 80th penalty on defense at the half. But outside of that, it felt like there was a disaster waiting to happen on offense. So if they could burn clock, let the Jets do everything but score, then I was fine with that. So, yeah, giving up that 3rd and 26 was annoying. But, I mean, Leonard Williams, the only reason he didn't get Defensive Player of the Week last week was because he didn't get the pick 6. Kobe Bryant did. That's right. Pretty much the same as Cam Chancellor didn't win Super Bowl MVP because Malcolm Smith got the Super Bowl MVP with the pick 6 in effect. But I guess
he will not be denied. You cannot deny a man with 2 sacks and a block extra point and a pick 6 when he's 290 pounds and he takes it 90 yards.
Yeah, he's listed at over 300. So he is the heaviest man to ever record a pick 6 that far. So 92 yards. I guess there's something about that stadium and pick 6s for Seahawks players, because that's 4 now. And yes, the blocked extra point, as you mentioned at the start of the game. And don't forget, he started the game with a sack that led to a face mask. That was also a face mask penalty and led to a touchdown. So
led to a touchdown.
That was a negative play for him, but he more than made up for the mistake with the face mask. And he is playing as well as anybody on defense in the NFL right now over the last 2 weeks. He's been phenomenal, and he is a major reason why the Seahawks have made this major defensive turnaround, because outside of the first quarter and, an odd play here and there, they were locked down on defense yet again.
Next gen stats clocking Leonard Williams at 17.84 miles per hour, top speed on that. We've got Carly Perkins with a $10 super chat coming in. This was the most wild game I've seen in a while. Muffed returns, no punter, Jets penalties everywhere. I think neither team deserved to win. Prepared us for the cursed game next week in Arizona, and Arizona also losing. So, hey, we have a little bit of padding now, Carly.
Yes, and it's padding right now, but if they beat the Cardinals, they would effectively have a 3-game lead on them with 4 games to play. So they would effectively be a win away from at least knocking Arizona out of NFC West contention. We still got to worry about the Rams. And last I checked, the Rams are losing to the Saints. And in fact, the 2-minute warning, they're still losing 3-0. So if the Rams also lose and the Niners lose, Seattle really has no excuse as far as blowing this division. You beat Arizona, if you do as much as beat one of the Bears or the Rams, I think you should be good. I mean, at this point, 9-8 actually might be good enough to win the division, given the way the other teams are playing. But they also can't keep doing this forever, where they look like the sloppiest team in history, because Green Bay and Minnesota are on the horizon after this Arizona game. And those will be blowout losses if they continue to commit costly penalties, bad red zone play, bad goal line play, all of that. I mean, it's got to stop, and yet it just never stops.
You know, it is better to win than it is to lose, as Samuel Gelber says in the super chat, $12 super chat, thanks to one of our live executive producers coming in. And it's better to win annoying games than to lose them. This was an annoying game too, because going at halftime, well, I guess I was very annoyed, but then again, when they went into halftime and they were able to kind of claw their way back in it, they go into halftime 21-16, only down by 5 points, Mookie, despite having three muffed, whether they were kickoffs or punt returns, two of them where they fumbled it and gave it over to the Jets. They had a blocked PAT. And then they blocked the PAT, as mentioned by Leonard Williams. Fortunately, they hit like a 54-yard field goal from Jason Myers too, that just barely makes it over the crossbar. That was a wild first half.
That is one of the single worst performances, offense, defense, or special teams, any unit I've ever seen out of a Seahawks squad. That's a fireable offense, the right? way that played out.
In just one half.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, I think the special teams had actually been playing better over the past few weeks. So I can give Harbaugh just a very ill-timed bad game reprieve. The D. Williams experiment's got to end. Like, he needs to be gone this week. And, you know, it sucks to say it because I like his story. I vouch for him being an intriguing option as an undrafted rookie, being the special teams return guy the Seahawks have generally lacked. But that's got to be over for him. I mean, he drops a kickoff and fumbles it, and the Jets get it, turns into a touchdown. That's 3 muff punts or fumbles that led to turnovers for him. Should have been a fourth when he ran into Witherspoon in the 49ers game and they didn't have the angle to show that it was a muff punt. Right. He's also had other bad punt return decisions that have pinned Seattle deep in their own territory, and he's not particularly explosive either. So I think they have to get rid of him. So he's going to be on waivers. Put him on the practice squad, fine, but he can't be on the active roster, especially when you got other players coming back like Chen and Nwosu. Shenault, I have no idea what's up with him, because now that's 3 fumbles for him too. Right. He fumbled one in the 49ers game, and he made up for it by returning a kick for a touchdown in the same game. But he drops this one, and it didn't lead to a turnover. And then the second one, he drops it, picks it up, falls on his own. Ground can cause a fumble when you're not contacted. I mean, that was just atrocious. So, yeah, Seattle needs like new kick returners pronto, and yet there are not too many options. That's what sucks. Kenny McIntosh took 2 kicks over the last couple of weeks. He dropped one in the second San Francisco game and took it out to like the 10-yard line. And then he nonchalantly picked the ball up from the front of the end zone, ran it out to the 15. So the return game is what is causing so much headache for the Seahawks, both in the punt and kick side. But yes, if special teams were just average, this would have been a pretty comfortable win. Yeah, but because it was a complete disaster, we had to sweat this out. Even with the way the offense performed, some of the goal line struggles, that should have been a comfortable win just off of decent special teams.
We've got Ryan 911 with a $9.99 super chat, our live executive producer. Another win, always fun to win a game exactly as planned. Ryan Bowen saying that game was drunk. Yes, that's probably more accurate rather than just as planned. And also PGZ206 coming in with a $2 super chat. Big Cat. Yes, Woolen is extra soft. We even saw his softness get attacked by Julian Love live on the field. So that didn't go unnoticed by me.
Yeah, I need to see the all-22 angle of that, because I get why they played deep on 3rd and 26. But the Jets could have punted if it was like a 15-yard play, because they still had 2 timeouts. Yeah. And instead,
Woolen, it was just that Woolen slowed up as he was going to the sideline, I think. And I think Love wanted him to.
You got to keep him. Sideline. Yeah, you got to attack him. And I thought initially he had a chance to actually get all 26. Ended up being 24, but that's my bugaboo with all NFL defenses. When it's 3rd and long, do not play to limit the team to 1 yard short of the first down, because teams are going to go for it more than ever before. So by giving up 24, that made it a no-brainer. If it was 4th and 25, they might have punted it, Seattle gets the ball back, and then who knows from there. But yeah, Woolen totally messed up there. And, I think he got away with one on the Devontae Adams drop on 4th down, because that's one that Adams in his prime catches 99 times out of 100, but he must have Taco Bell on the mind. But nevertheless, Woolen did have some other good plays. The defense kept Seattle in it. And they obviously changed the game with the pick 6 from Williams, because think about it. Garrett Wilson on the previous play, wide open touchdown to Josh Joe, who I think had his he had his toughest moment as a Seahawk today. But Josh Joe gets turned around on a double move. Rodgers just sails it. So that could have been 28-7 and maybe mission impossible. And instead, next play, Williams gets a pick 6, the PAT's blocked, but whatever the case, that was a huge swing. And not only is it the first 92-yard pick 6 by a big man ever, that's the first pick 6 ever thrown in the red zone by Aaron Rodgers. Keeping in mind, he doesn't get picked a lot, doesn't throw a lot of pick 6s, but you know what? That avenges the Nas Jones interception for the 2017 season opener, when Jeremy Lane gets called for some stupid penalty that had no impact on the play, and it took away the pick 6. The pick got upheld, took away the big man's touchdown. So 7 years later, vindication. Nas, if you're out there, shout out to you. Leonard Williams did that one for you.
That was for you, Nas Jones. Yes. Pepper Horton with the $5 super chat. Nathan Walsh also coming in. Any word on Dixon? We did hear from Coach Mike after the game in the post-game press conference. We talk about weird special team stuff that happened in the first half. How about Dixon in the second half? Because we heard from Coach Mike after the game that they were in that position that if they had to actually punt the football, it was going to be Jason Myers. They weren't going to use Dixon as a punter in that second half because of his injury. Fortunately, he was able to go out there and handle an extra point well enough, but that led to them going for it in maybe a situation that was questionable, but probably one where they needed to have it on that 4th and 6. And thank goodness they go for it. They get the nice throw to JSN on the sideline, a little bit roundabout way to get to that play, but it kept the drive going. And let's see, was that the one that ended so weird too? Or is that that was the field goal in the 4th quarter? Okay, that they needed for the go ahead, right?
Yeah, I'm laughing now because DJ Reed just tweeted at the NFL officiating saying, "You effing suck. Y'all should be ashamed of y'allselves." DJ, I love you. I wish you were still a Seahawk, but like almost every penalty on the Jets was a totally legit one. And he should have had a taunting penalty for whatever he said to Charles Cross that didn't get called. And there was also a play, it was either him or a linebacker who straight up tackled Jake Bobo on the deep pass to DK Metcalf, and the refs didn't flag it at all.
They missed that,
so
yeah.
The Jets were their own worst enemy. So I'm glad that there was some team that wanted to out-lose the game. And yes, so we got someone in the comments, Carly Perkins, saying we should never punt again. Well, I'll tell you what, that was a puntless second half by the Seahawks. It was just, the problem was it was turnover on downs, field goal, touchdown, kneel down. I mean, that whole second half was just an adventure in itself on offense, whereas the first half, it was just the special teams that was the adventure.
Yeah, I want to put this up on the screen too here in a second as we look at some of the stats. Yeah, Carly saying, yeah, should never punt again. Lisa Carlson saying, heart attack games are back, baby. They never left. And this one definitely felt like a heart attack game. And this is the part of the game right here, Mookie, that the field goal got them within 2 points, and then they get the go-ahead touchdown in the 4th quarter. But it's this part of the game. They only had one drive in the entire 3rd quarter because the Jets, they held the ball for time of possession for a pretty good amount of time. Seahawks 11 minutes of play time here. And it's surprising that they even got to the point that they did, because on a holding penalty by 2 of the guys on the right side of the offensive line get called. It backs them up 1st and 20. But we get Geno with a nice pass deep down the right side on DK Metcalf, covered by Sauce Gardner. I don't know if he got injured on that play too, because we didn't see much of Sauce after that.
He played into the 4th quarter. I mean, he certainly played on the same drive, and then we didn't see him much for the rest of the game, which is why we saw Quantez Stiggers with the critical DPI in the 4th quarter. But yes, that sequence, that is going into the hang it in the Louvre, man, because that is quintessential Seahawks red zone football in the post Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson era.
We have to go through this, Mookie, because yes, DK gets down to the 6-yard line on a 30-yard pass. They go for the first down wasted fade pass to DK on first down. Then they run it on second, incomplete on third. That's the DPI on Chuck Clark. Gives them an entirely new set of downs. Then they have first and goal where they run it. It doesn't go anywhere. And you're thinking, okay, what do you do when it's 1st and 1? Like, do you just keep running it, or do you try and mix it up a little bit, Mookie?
I'm glad they finally did a play action fake. It's just that Geno missed that throw to Fant just a bit outside, to quote Bob Uecker. I actually think the problem with this sequence is that Geno underthrew the deep ball to Metcalf on the 30-yard game. I don't think he was overly sharp. I didn't think he had a bad game, but he was not super accurate on some of his throws. He wasn't really close to getting picked, so that's a good thing. His interception streak ended, but that felt like a touchdown missed opportunity. One of those, quote, inaccurate completions, I guess you could say, where it's on target, but if it was in stride, Metcalf scores. But yeah, after the 1st and goal at the 1, the Fant play, I think Geno just missed him. But then the Jets call timeout. I don't even know why the Jets call timeout. You're going to get a 1-inch penalty when you're already at your own 1-yard line. And then Ryan Grubb, I'm convinced, thinks Charbonnet is like the second coming of Sean Alexander, because he becomes like the default goal line back. But they had nothing there. And then there's an offside penalty, so you get a bailout. And then the next sequence of plays, I just couldn't stand. Getting a few plays back, fade route to Metcalf, throw that out of the playbook. He never gets those. He never catches them. Geno threw a pretty much uncatchable pass anyway. Like, what's the point of that? But the slant to Metcalf, why throw to their best corner? Was this a point to try and own Sauce Gardner because of all the Woolen and Gardner debates from 2 years ago? I mean, don't do that. Metcalf didn't have inside positioning, and Sauce made a good play. And then Geno can't take that sack on 4th and goal. No. But a half-field read, sprint out to the left, Oluwatimi gets turned inside out, so the play's already dead. But just watching that play again, there's nobody open. So it would have had to be a risky throw. An interception's a touchback anyway. So I don't know why Mark Sanchez was also saying just heave it. And also, I would appreciate not throwing it away on 4th and goal. But nevertheless, that pretty much has got me out on Grubb. That should have been a sneak. I mean, Geno has had a good success rate when sneaking the ball.
Yeah, and I don't know how they don't run one single sneak in all of those plays.
Yes,
that makes no sense.
Befuddled. And if they're going to throw at the goal line and you want to throw it to a big-bodied player, the Seahawks have 3 tight ends that are worth throwing to. And I've left out Farrell Brown deliberately here. So, well, actually, 2 tight ends. So I'm going to leave out Brown and include Fant and include Brady Russell. Sorry, not Brady Russell, A.J. Barner. Like, throw to those guys. If you want to do some, lob pass in the end zone, that's what Jake Bobo can do. If you want to throw a slant, maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba's got a better chance of catching those passes because he can win with his feet. But that was horrendous play calling. And some of it was bad execution by the players, but a good chunk of it was like Grubb having no feel. And this is not isolated to his time with the Seahawks, because I've watched enough Huskies football to know. I can remember the Oregon game last year, where it's almost the same thing. First and goal at the 1, and they just ran a bunch of garbage plays, and it turned it over on downs. And the only reason UW was able to win that game is because the defense forced a 4th down stop. So there's a huge hang-up for Grubb when he doesn't have all-pro level or all-American level offensive linemen in college, but like a top offensive line. Seattle's had bad offensive lines over the years. They don't ever look this bad in the red zone.
Yeah, and when it comes to guys in college and the way they played too, Zach Charbonnet was never a great goal line punch it in type guy at UCLA either. So trying to use him in that way in Seattle too, he's not becoming that guy. Brandon Anderson coming in with a $1 super chat saying it feels like the offensive line pass blocking is starting to normalize a bit, but the run blocking is just horrendous. What's going on with our run blocking? I'm curious what you saw in this, Mookie. I know for me, I thought that a lot of their success in the run game, and it was a limited amount of success. I think we can go take a look at the stats here. but a lot of their success was coming in between the guards and tackles, and not much success when it was trying to get it outside. And I kind of wondered if they would attack the outside a little bit more in this game, just because you got Sauce Gardner on the outside, you got DJ Reed. If you're able to get it outside, you have a little bit of a mismatch. Ken Walker even had Sauce one-on-one outside, and he ran it out of bounds rather than running through Gardner, which was interesting. But Walker finishes the day, 16 carries, 49 yards. What were some of the things that you saw when it came to the run game today?
I thought they opened up some good holes in the running game, but and this is not to criticize Walker's not a good back or anything, or Charbonnet. Seattle needs a Chris Carson type back again, because the frequency at which those two get ankle tackled is alarming. I felt like there could have been some much bigger runs if they weren't getting tripped up through contact at the ankles. But it was feast or famine, because for every good run they would get where there's a hole for 7 or 8 yards or 11 yards, they would also have some toss play to the outside that loses 6. So there's just not a lot of consistency with this run blocking. And some of it, I think, is just they don't know what they are as far as the run game. Do you want to be a power running game? Do you want to do more dual blocks? Do you want to do more outside runs? Do you want to do more zone runs? They're just trying everything at the moment. I don't think, if I could defend Grubb slightly, I think he's trying different things. They're going under center a lot more, but the execution is just not there. There was one play that Mark Sanchez highlighted where Lucas and Lomea end up both going to the left side to block when Lomea should have stayed in his spot, and that basically blew up the entire play. And there was another stat that they showed, and I'll pull it after the fact, but Kenneth Walker is contacted behind the line of scrimmage on his runs the second most often in the league. And that is a stunning stat, because I can't believe he's not first. I mean, it feels like he should be first. The frequency.
Is Charbonnet first?
Yeah, maybe just on volume, but yes, it's too much to bear. And they're not 2017 bad, because at least this team can get rushing touchdowns, but they're the next closest thing to 2017 that I've seen over the years in terms of a bad rushing offense. And Geno also isn't going to be the type who's going to be running for 500, 600 yards in a season. He's already rushed for 200 some odd on the year. And as of 2 weeks ago, he had more rushing yards than Charbonnet. Now, Charbonnet's overtaken Geno in the lead, but when this happens, your offense becomes a little bit too predictable. And the short yardage stuff really concerns me, because if they're not doing that little pony personnel thing where it's an inside handoff, or the mini handoff to Walker on the outside, just running normal straight power jumbo package or anything is getting stuffed. Charbonnet again getting stuffed on a 4th and 1, and yet they got bailed out because of the horse collar tackle. But we've been Seahawks fans long enough to remember when it was Sean Alexander and Max Strong and Steve Hutchinson and Walter Jones and Robbie Tobek, Chris Gray, and Sean Locklear. And if it was 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, you could pretty much write it off. It's a guarantee. Even in the Cable years, there were plenty of times where Seattle failed to get a yard. But this year's team is almost comical in that they're basically getting beaten as soon as the ball is handed off. And they got away with it in the sense that they won the game. But this is just going to be something that whenever the Seahawks are eliminated from the playoffs, or if they've missed the playoffs, we're going to look back on all these missed opportunities and go, if only they had better offensive line, better play calling, or something to mitigate these disasters.
Yeah, I think it still comes down to just too many tells on offense of what we're planning to do. And I think I'm hoping anyway, Mookie, that we're going to see some of these things work together in terms of Grubb lining it up, looking like it's going to run, and using the play action more. We did see more under center, so I feel like they're trending that way. So I'm still remaining hopeful. We'll see. But as much as we have banged on the offense, I feel like the defense really should be celebrated in this game for the amount of, they were put in bad positions over and over again, and the defense manages to hold it. They come up in big moments. The only time that they really score is on short fields. It was an incredible job by the defense today.
Oh yeah, that was phenomenal. And yeah, I'm not disappointed we won. I am disappointed that the offense did the same silly stuff to self-destruct, but and the special teams, of course. But the defense, I'm just about sold that this defensive turnaround is for real.
Yeah.
Because Arizona and the 49ers, I know the 49ers are banged up, but they're better offenses than this Jets team. And they looked really good there. Now, in the first quarter was a little bit rough, but even though Aaron Rodgers is clearly past his prime and he's just firing just wayward passes too often these days, he's still capable of playing the classics, whether it's those throws to Devontae Adams or hitting Garrett Wilson or trying to catch the defense off guard and just zip a pass over the middle. But they put up 14 points in the first quarter on offense, and that's it. The last points the Jets scored was the kick return touchdown after Barner's score. So you're looking at 3/4 of shutout football from the Seahawks defense. And as you said, they got put in bad spots. I mean, the second touchdown was a direct result of D. Williams' fumble. So they gave up
And the
one.
first one was the face or the face mask, right, by Leonard Williams. So they had the Jets off the field, and it was that play that kept them on to be able to score the touchdown.
Yeah, absolutely. So you hold Rodgers. He throws 39 passes for 185 yards. He completed 21, but still, those are not Aaron Rodgers type numbers, and not with having Adams and Wilson as your top two receivers. Holding Wilson at 5 catches for 41 yards, I consider that a victory because at this point, this version of Adams is worse than Wilson. So I consider Garrett Wilson to be their top receiver. And then the run defense, again, I think they got away with a couple of runs that were called back for penalties that were not necessarily related to the play, like the illegal shift. But Breece Hall, longest run was 12 yards. And I think it was also the carry that he fumbled. But Braylon Allen hardly got going. So 89 yards rushing on 21 attempts, and a couple of those rushes were also Aaron Rodgers scrambles. So the run defense improving in Mike Macdonald's system, I believe, improves what they can do in the passing game. And Leonard Williams has gotten a lot of praise, and deservedly so. Julian Love is playing at a equally high level to me at the safety position. I mean, the tackle he made on that screen pass was a thing of beauty. He forced the fumble on Hall that led to the turnover. And he also had a pretty critical pass breakup right before the drop by Adams on 4th down to start it was the second quarter, right? Whichever part of the game where it was a 4th and 2 and Adams couldn't bring in the catch. The play before, Rodgers has an open guy, and Julian Love is able to bat that ball away or at least get a deflection, and they eventually get the turnover on down. So, yes, Love, Williams, and I'd also say Devin Witherspoon and Ernest Jones. Those, to me, are your top 4 performers at the moment, with a honorable mention to Boye Mafe, because one of those 2 sacks was a direct result of Mafe's initial pressure. So I'm not going to say they're firing on all cylinders, because they do give up some, iffy plays here and there, but they are playing at a high level, and they need to play at a high level with the way this offense is looking. So with the stretch run of this season, you got to deal with Arizona's offense again, but Green Bay is looking fearsome, and that's going to be a serious run defense test. And then you've got the Vikings as well. And then a little easier with the Bears, but Caleb Williams is playing better since they fired Shane Waldron. That could be a trap game. If you want to talk about trap game, that is Sunday to Thursday, Christmas week, the second short week of the game for the season for the Seahawks. Ideally, we're talking about celebrating the NFC West title before the Chicago game, but realistically, that might be a game they have to win to clinch it.
Yeah, if we know anything about our team, Mookie, it's that it's going to come down to the final games of the season, and probably that game against the Rams, even, to where we're wondering, if the Rams packed it in for the season, are they going to be coming back and vying for the NFC West too? You really have to wonder what our team is going to do.
Yes, absolutely. But look, they were dead in the water 3 weeks ago, and we're wondering, are a lot of people going to be in trouble? I certainly wonder that. If this season had cratered and they went 4-13 and 5-12, how many people would be let go, both on the roster and all the way up to the front office with John Schneider? I think this is enough that Schneider should be safe. I think it was always a high likelihood he was going to be safe, but they're playing well on defense, at least at the right time, where there should be confidence, a vote of confidence for Mike Macdonald. But Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff, the offensive line coach, they are very much on notice, and so is Jay Harbaugh, because those units are costing Seattle, if not games, which they have at times, they're certainly costing them valuable possessions with the mistakes that they're making.
Well, and it's interesting too because Jay Harbaugh was the one guy, the one person that McDonald knew from his previous coaching stands. It was kind of everyone else was compiled as a staff together. So it is going to be interesting to see what ends up being changed in the offseason. But we got plenty of time before that happens, Mookie. And we got to see how this season plays out. I do want to point out, though, too, anybody who hasn't watched the Mike McDonald press conference, I think it was Brian Nemhauser, Hawk Blogger, who asked to walk through the thought process down on the goal line. And Mike said, well, I'm not going to go through the thought process, but we need to be better in that goal line situation. So, I mean, if you're a head coach and not annoyed, as fans, obviously, we're going to be annoyed. As a head coach, you're probably going to be annoyed by that situation, too. And I don't blame him at all for not wanting to get too deep into that end zone or that goal line stand that ended up failing.
Well, no kidding. He was the Ravens defensive coordinator for 2 seasons. He'd been on the staff for so long that he got to watch John Harbaugh's team pretty much get a yard every time, even during the Flacco days, because they had such a good enough running game. And then you have Lamar, and is basically a cheat code. And then he also coached 1 year at Michigan. And we know that Jim Harbaugh's style of football is very conducive to getting that valuable yard when needed. But yeah, that has to be cleaned up. And I would like to see more red zone targets also in general for Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Right.
I didn't want to call him the undisputed number 1 receiver, but he's playing like it the last few weeks. Even when Metcalf has come back, he had 4 targets, but he caught them all, had 74 yards. And he's a more efficient target right now than Metcalf. There are obviously some areas where you go, yeah, Metcalf is that deep threat, that one-on-one shot, but now we're seeing JSN targeted more down the field, and he is effectively taking over Lockett's spot as Mr. Third Down. And as sad as it is to say, I mean, Lockett is he's almost invisible in this offense these days. 3 catches for 16 yards on 3 targets, and I think 2 of them were in the first quarter. So JSN's emergence is still a huge deal, and I'm thrilled for him because I know there were some fans wondering, is JSN going to live up to his potential and this and that? I think he's slowly but surely doing that. He had a very productive rookie year, given that Metcalf and Lockett were ahead of him in the depth chart. But patience, my friend. JSN is really starting to emerge as that receiver we hoped he would be. And yes, Ihad DK did get some big flags, one of which Seattle wasted, but the other one turned into an eventual touchdown drive. So that, by the way, counts as a Geno Smith game-winning drive against his former team, of which he completed like 2 passes. But you know what? It counts. And I'm sure that was great for him to win against the team that drafted him and then ditched him for the second time in 3 years. He did it to save the season 2 years ago at home, but now he gets to go back to MetLife, get the W, and 7-0, baby. 7-0 at MetLife Stadium for the Seattle Seahawks since that stadium opened in, 2009 or 2010? So we're looking at 4 wins over the Giants, 2 wins over the Jets, and 1 Super Bowl win over the Denver Broncos. It's the East Coast home away from home for Seattle.
Lumen East, as we have referred to it often. And I had my concerns, Mookie, when the Seahawks went down 14-0. It got me looking at the biggest comebacks in Seahawks history, and this now ties for the 8th biggest comeback in Seahawks history. The last time that they've come back from 14 or more points was in 2019. They did it both against the Browns and the Tampa Bay Bucks in 2019. So big comeback victory by our Seahawks, 26-21.
Yes, that is also the largest comeback of the Geno era, obviously, too. And, well, you could say that the defense played a bigger role. The offense still had enough plays to get themselves back in it. And the 88-yard touchdown drive ending and the TD to Barner, I mean, that was a real lifesaver there because they weren't generating a whole lot the first couple of possessions. But it seems like they do better when they're backed up. How many 85-plus yard drives have they managed this season? And then they waste short fields. It makes almost no sense. But hey, at least that was a play-action pass in the red zone that worked. And Barner continues to impress as a rookie. And most importantly to me, that's Jake Bobo going out in motion, and it's not an obvious run play. You're talking about tells. I am tired of them motioning Bobo for eventual runs. So they showed a little winkle. That is effectively the same touchdown that Barner scored against the Lions. But just do that. Do simple stuff. Don't reinvent the wheel. And you'll find yourself in the end zone more often than not. So they got that red zone touchdown, and of all things, they win the game by converting in short yardage in the red zone with Zach Charbonnet. And a shout out to Satoa Lomea for the critical block that sprung Charbonnet forward for the score.
Great call out there. Also want to call out everybody who helps support the show as Mookie and I recap the game. Carly Perkins, Samuel Gelber, Ryan 911, PGZ, Pepper Horton, Lisa Carlson, and Brendan Anderson. Big thanks to all you for the super chats throughout this post-game episode. And a big thanks to my co-host, Mookie Alexander of Field Gulls, the managing editor there. Mookie, I saw some people in the chat asking who this was, and so I feel like it's on me for not having you on. And I don't know, it's probably been way too long. We used to do this more regularly when I was at Field Gulls. We shouldn't let it go so long next time.
No, we should. I think the last time I was on was after the playoff loss to the Rams. So we're doing this under happier times on this occasion. So it's great to be back with you, Brendan, and hopefully the good times continue to roll, and hopefully they're a lot cleaner than what we saw today. And I think with that, there's only one thing left to say: Go Hawks. Go Hawks.